All right, I want to make a guide here on how to get started with modding Quake. I noticed there are not a lot of resources that kind of hold your hand through the whole thing. The resources that are out there kind of assume that you already have a lot of knowledge that would be relevant. So I'm going to just kind of start from nothing and try to explain what's involved and how you can do it. There's a number of approaches you could take, a number of things that you could download that would all get you to the same end result. But I'm going to just show the way that seemed most natural to me and talk about why. Now, my voice is pretty crusty. I've got a sinus infection, so if you're watching, you'll just have to deal with that. Apologies. Now, the first thing that we're going to need is going to be VisualStudio, which is going to be an editor, a text editor that's going to install all of the C++ development tools that we're going to need, or the ones that are going to be relevant for working with the Quake engine. So if you don't have this, you can just Google VisualStudio, download the one that is stable right now is VisualStudio 2022. So that's the one that I have. And you can just download this for your machine. I should add, I have not tried this on a system other than Windows. I'm sure that it is possible, but it's going to be, you're going to use different tools. So you would just look for versions of the tools that we're downloading here that work on your operating system. So apologies, it's going to be harder, but this is probably the most straightforward path. I think a lot of the tools for modding Quake and working with Quake are the best ones are for Windows. You could probably do it on a different operating system, but you'd probably have a rockier time. So we're going to get VisualStudio. I've already got it installed, so I'm going to open it. And once you open it, you'll get this screen. You can either open a folder. I'm going to just click Continue Without Code because that's all we need right now. And what we're going to do is click on this Tools in the top nav bar here, Get Tools and Features, and we're going to install some software inside of VisualStudio that's going to let us work with C++ for game development. So if you're in the Workloads tab and you scroll down to Gaming, you'll see Game Development with C++. We want to click that, and it's going to have a lot of these checked by default. There's a kind of non-optional included section. You can't do anything with optional. I think I unclicked a couple of these. This is what I have. I would probably go with the default ones that are optional, but this is what I have checked. You should be fine if you have this. And you'll have to click Modify. You'll have to click OK, some kind of version of that. Let's see. I'm not going to do it because I've already done it, but you want to install that, and you should get some progress bars and such going on once you've done that. So now we don't have a project to open yet. So what we want is the Quake engine. Now the Quake engine, as it was originally open sourced in the late 90s, was prepared to run on older machines than the ones we use today. So there's a number of projects that are called source ports. So if I just look up Quake 1 source ports, list of source ports, these are just basically wrappers or kind of modified versions of the Quake engine that was originally made available to the public in the late 90s. You can see here, public release in 1999. commercial platform ports. It doesn't really matter. There's community ports. These are the ones that we are interested in. Now, the one that I'm using is called QuakeSpasm. And specifically, there's a modified version of QuakeSpasm called QuakeSpasm-Spiked, which is going to be different than original QuakeSpasm in that it has some kind of helpful additional changes that allow it to run nicely, do multiplayer nicely on modern desktops without the need for a bunch of configuration. So you could probably use different versions, different source ports. The reason that I like QuakeSpasm-Spiked, if you Google QuakeSpasm-Spiked GitHub, you'll see this result. Is this the one that I used? Let's see. This is the one that I used. Tim Bergeron, QSS-M. What I look for when I show up on a GitHub page for something, where there's a lot of options, different source ports. This source port, I can see that the last change was 3 weeks ago, which is a good sign. It means that it's going to be relatively modern and people are continuing to work on this. And so likely, if you're using a recent version of Windows and Visual Studio and everything, you're not going to have headaches related to the fact that it's old. So you may know GitHub is just a website where people keep their open source code, so people work together. If you look at these commits, you can see it's really only one person. It's Tim Bergeron who's been making all these changes, but in a lot of projects there's going to be multiple authors working together. So anyway, this is just a place where we can download that code. So we want this on our local machine, our local computer. So the way to do that is to click this code. Excuse me for a second. Try to do my little coughing fits off the mic. So there's this code button. You can either download a zip file, which is going to be a compressed folder with the source code, or you can use GitHub Desktop if you have that. I have GitHub Desktop already. It's going to be a natural way. It's just a way that I'm used to interacting with GitHub. But let me show you that quickly, and then I'll show you the other way. Open GitHub Desktop. It's going to open it. I'm already signed into GitHub. Let's see. I've already cloned this, so I'm going to clone again. But it's going to give you some kind of basic controls here to install it on your local machine. And by default, it's going to go in your documents folder, GitHub. That's where I would recommend putting it if you can see that you have a choice. This folder might not exist, but you might create it. So I'm already logged in here, but you can see that basically just downloaded it. If you don't have GitHub Desktop, what you can do is go code, download zip, and it's going to have a different name. By default, it's going to want to put it in downloads. Let me go to my documents, GitHub, and put it here. And then I'll go back to this folder. Now, you're going to want something that can unzip this file. I believe by default, Windows just has zip folder extraction, but my impression is it's quite bad and problematic. If you don't want to install something else, you can try extract all and see if that works for you. I have something installed called 7-Zip. 7-Zip is just going to be an open source file archiver on Archiver, so it can compress and uncompress folders. You can install this on your system if you don't have one. It's going to make you choose whether your system is 64 or 32-bit. That's a good thing to know in general. If you don't know, let's just go system information. You can see here, system type is going to show you x64. It's just kind of telling you what kind of CPU you have. Good thing to know. I already have the 64-bit one because that's what's relevant for me. Now, just as a note, if you have a modern version of Windows, a recent version of Windows, it's 2025 right now, it's probably 64-bit. Now, once you have something to unzip this, you're going to right-click it. I do 7-zip, extract files, hit enter, and it's going to have a different name than the one that we got from GitHub. If you did it this way, go ahead and just rename it QSS-M, and I'm going to delete the one that I just downloaded manually. So once we're in here, you can see that this is all the stuff that was present on this kind of display here. These are all the files we got. And what we're interested in is Windows. You can see Linux, Mac OS. You could probably go those directions if you're in a different operating system. But in the Windows folder, there's a folder called Windows Studio, Visual Studio, sorry. And these are project files that they made specifically to open in Visual Studio. So if I go back to Visual Studio, I'm going to go File, Open, not Open Folder. We're going to open Project Solution. And we're going to be in this Windows folder, QSS-M, Windows, Visual Studio. And we want QuakeSpasm.sln. These are just basically project files for Visual Studio. And you can see what it's showing me here. I get, let's see, there's kind of a list of files and folders inside of this, and I get this little item called QuakeSpasm SDL2. SDL2, just so you know, SDL2 is like a graphics layer, a graphics API. It basically is letting you talk to the CPU, if you build, or the GPU rather, and kind of make windows and graphics. There's a number of these different graphics libraries, like you might have heard of OpenGL or Vulkan or Metal. These are just different graphics libraries on different systems. So I suppose this is just the one that the library is using, the Quake engine here, QuakeSpasm is using, but it's just good to know. I'm going to give you probably more information than you need to know, or things you might already know, just because it's going to be important to understand as deeply as possible what we're working with, so we're not just doing things blindly. So once we have this QuakeSpasm SDL2 here, this is a project that it's a project that we can build. Maybe that's not the right terminology, but when you select this item here, QuakeSpasm SDL2, you should see this play button. I'm going to just run it. Forgive me, I'm going to cough. You can see in the bottom, you might be able to see some files being built. Okay, so what it's doing is it's compiling the Quake engine. Let's see here. This will take just a moment. Now this is going to fail. Let's see. You might get a message like this. I hope you do. It's going to tell us check that the ID1 subdirectory containing pack0.pack and pack1.pack, blah, blah, blah. What that's telling you is the engine is running, and by default, it's going to look for the game in a certain location. Let me open up my QSS-M folder. This is where the ID1 folder is going to be, where it expects it to be, but it's not going to be here. We're going to need to go get it. So if you have a version of Quake, like if you've bought Quake, you should have this folder somewhere, have a way to get it. I'm going to just assume that you haven't bought Quake and show you how you can get a version of it that's going to work for us. You need to understand at this point that the Quake engine is just the kind of wrapper around Quake games or Quake mods. So once you have this engine, you can make this folder ID1, and if you have the right stuff inside there, you'll have like the code, basically the thing that tells the engine like, okay, here's my map files, here's my 3D models, here's my code that tells how the enemies work, how the weapons work and all that. So all that stuff, like the game files, the game data is different than the engine. And so the reason that there's so many Quake mods and games based on Quake, on the Quake engine, is that it was really flexible. You have other games like Team Fortress and I think all the Valve and things like Half-Life. Like there's this whole descendancy of games and engines based on Quake because of this flexibility. And there's a huge mod scene. So anyway, we're going to just need to go and get the game files. So the way that we're going to do that, we could, the reason that we don't want to work with the original Quake files, but it's all proprietary. It's not open source. Those 3D models and everything, they couldn't, how to say this, they don't have that open source license that's going to let you work with them. So we're going to just avoid that by getting something called LibreQuake. Let me search for LibreQuake GitHub. This is going to be an open source version of the game data. And we're going to install it just like we did before. Actually, we don't want the source code. We want a release. These are all the files that are needed to kind of compile the game data. So for instance, if I go into LQ1 here, you're going to see music, maps, for instance, source. Let me just kind of drill a little bit. I'm not seeing what I would have expected. Basically, you could imagine that the people making this game data had to build the 3D models and everything. I guess in this case, this .map is something that was made with a map tool, a tool for building maps for Quake. But the Quake engine is going to expect these things to be kind of packed up in a kind of compressed format. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So rather than getting the source code, which we ultimately want, but for now we're going to go to this releases folder or releases link. And I would go ahead and read this. This will be interesting. They tell us that this is the engine they used. We're going to use ours, which is QuakeSpasm-Spiked. I'm going to go downloads full. I'm going to put this in the same place as our QSS-M. It's going to be zipped. And if I go back to File Explorer, let's go ahead and extract this the way we did before. 7-zip, extract files, and OK. Now, I'm going to delete the original zipped one. I'm going to just rename this full to LibreQuake Release full. And in here, we're going to have full ID1. This is the ID1 folder I was talking about. Let's go ahead and copy. We're going to go back to the QSS-M folder, and we're going to just paste it in here. You should see it right here alongside everything else at the top level. Now, inside of this ID1 folder, we're going to see pack0pack and pack1.pack. This is this kind of compressed, all bundled together version of all the game data, all the scripts, all the maps, all the 3D models, all the sounds, etc. So once this is in here, and this folder exists in QSS-M, if we go back to VisualStudio and we click play, let's see, we're going to get another error here. Now, probably what's going on for me, it's probably what's going on for you, is that it's not looking in the right folder. So for the ID1 folder. So if I go back to this QuakeSpasm-SDL2, if you don't see this, go View, Solution Explorer, and we're going to right-click QuakeSpasm-SDL2, Properties, Debugging on the left here, Working Directory. We're going to tell it, because we drilled into this folder, we're in /Windows/VisualStudio. We want it to work from the actual root directory 2 levels up. So what we're going to do is add .. / .. / / and this is just the Windows way of saying whatever this folder is plus 2 folders up. We're going to click OK, and let's go ahead and click play again. Hopefully we get the game running. So this is great. You can see here we've loaded our game files. The Quake engine is loading the game data from those pack files. And let me just do new game. You'll see that this does, we're actually running the game LibreQuake. This isn't original Quake. This is like a modified version of the game data where everything is legally not problematic. So we can use these files, no problem in our game. It's just going to be less problematic, easier to work with. It's free, it's easy to find. So this is great. I'm going to hit quit. So this is a good place to stop. This was a lot of steps, but hopefully if you got here, what we're going to want to do next is kind of transition from working with those, playing this packed version of the game files to the unpacked version, which is going to be the ones that we can kind of edit and actually modify so that we're making our own version of the game. So thanks for watching, and I'm going to add a little bit of these details in the video description, and hopefully you can follow along. And if you can't, just ask questions and hopefully you can get up to speed.